So here's an example for what I experienced yesterday when I approached my painting practice. I was doing an exercise put forth by another artist, and I was in full resistance mode. I didn't want to do it. I wasn't happy about my environment. I wanted to be working with limited materials, and my focus was staying with the trouble. So staying with this resistance and this conflict. And I was not enjoying my experience. It was painful to me how ugly what I was creating was. I was having my own internal familiar conflict of, why am I spending my time doing this? There are other things that I'm meant to be doing. This is a waste of time. This is the wrong path. It's wrong. I can't do this. There's something else I'm meant to be doing, and around and around. And to put it in a short way, but this has happened to me countless times, I think, is that I felt completely stuck and I didn't know how to get out of it. And I had some music on, which is definitely part of the structure I choose. And I stood back and just let myself move a little bit. And something shifted just in that. I stepped back, I put down my materials, and I just started moving. And I think in that movement, I just started to come back into myself, to inhabit myself. And I was able to drop some of the spinning. This isn't something that I find I can just program if I could press a button and make it happen. But the pressing of the button for me is often the physical, finding some way to relax my physical body. So I did that, and all of a sudden I was able to have some perspective, and I was able to pick up one instrument and make one simple stroke. And the difference was that I was connected with what I was doing. It wasn't that all of a sudden I made this beautiful thing to be able to save or show other people. It was that I was present with what I was doing. I wasn't wrapped up in my thought about how it wasn't good enough, and how my imagination and my material reality, my ability as a human being, were never going to match up, which is really hard to endure. So what Liz Green says here is, a strong Neptune provides access to archetypal images and feelings which belong to the mythology of paradise. Neptune's fantasy world, when embodied in artistic forms, has the power to strike deep chords of universal human suffering, loneliness, and longing for eternal bliss. But the creative impulse, the urge to incarnate the fantasy world, to bring it into the human world, the world of flesh, is an act of affirming life. You're a human being. Without this, Neptune's retreat into fantasy is an act of repudiating life. Far from generating the creative impulse, it may fuel a desire to dwell within the womb of the paradise garden. So to retreat into fantasy, to remain in the realm of oblivion. And so that's the difficulty of the creative act, is that you have to come up against the limitations of the material world, whether that's learning the technique of your medium or not being able to get your hands on the materials you want, and then your own growing, making space for the way that your voice manifests itself with all its flaws. And then of course you're judging it, and there's something there to be judged. There's something you're hearing, or the marks you made, or the words you chose to be judged, and it reflects you to yourself, and that shows yourself your humanity. Here I am, I'm human, I'm not a god, I'm limited, I have this imagination, I had this imagination of what I wanted to do, and this thing that I did isn't what I had in mind. And that is extremely painful, and I think showing up as an artist is learning to be gentle with that, and learning to trust yourself. You didn't make yourself. Creation made you. So it's actually this very self-serving view there's all kinds of words about this in all the spiritual traditions, to judge yourself. Because you're judging what the Creator made, whatever word you want to use, the Tao, gods, God, Jesus, whoever created you, you did not give birth to yourself. So there's a certain trust that has to happen. So I wanted to just give you a couple more of Liz Green's words, because she's very good at articulating these things. With Neptune, Saturn, it is not a case. So Saturn, again, the limitations of reality, Neptune, the unlimited imagination. With Neptune, Saturn, it is not a case of wanting to be a musician, a poet, a healer, or a political philosopher. It is a case of having to be, in order to cope with the constant internal conflict between the structures and limits of earthly life and the chaotic flood that waits beyond Saturn's boundaries. So she's presenting the creative process as the way that you actually find peace within this conflict. Because otherwise you're still a human schlubbing around the world with this imagination going, oh, this sucks. These limits suck. Reality is not what I wanted it to be, and that sucks. And I think this is why practicing some form of creativity, whatever that is for you, is important. Acknowledging that you are constantly creating, actually, as you are, as a human being. Because if you're just going around blaming the world you perceive, and it's still your perception, so you still always are creating. You're always telling yourself a story of what's real and what's not real. You're choosing what to focus on, what you see, what you touch, what you engage with, what you do or do not engage with. So you are constantly creating. A creative practice just makes you aware of this so that you can claim agency and stop blaming the world for not being the way that you want. Because the world is, you're the director of your senses. You didn't make the instrument that you're inhabiting, but you are the director of that. And so again, a creative practice is the practice of wielding consciously and bringing that into that process into closer relief, instead of just kind of moving the way that we move through our mundane reality, just kind of taking care of what we need to, and then taking care of our survival needs. So one last bit here. For very good reasons, Saturn-Neptune is known as the artist's aspect, because the apparently mutually exclusive worlds of physical form and boundless imagination can meet, albeit imperfectly, in the artist's creation. It is the only sphere of human endeavor where fantasy and reality can speak to each other without amputating vital elements of both. And then she goes on to say, Saturn-Neptune may also gravitate towards politics or the more mystical side of the helping profession. So interpret creativity and artistry as you will. Yeah, so again, an artist is someone who chooses to face this conflict head on. You're an incarnate human being in this world, and how are you going to take responsibility for inhabiting it? The responsibility for the worlds that you are constantly creating in every act that you make. And if you choose a medium and you practice that medium, you can really refine that act into a statement or an expression that other people then interact with. So there you have it. It's not something to be solved. It's something to be shown up for. And sometimes it is so hard. So keep on with the brave journey. I didn't want to use the word fight. Yeah, and I'm curious about your perspective. If you have anything to say, put it in the chat. Thanks.